That's giveaway. It's Petrie. Petrie through traffic right at Bolzania. He makes his first save of the game. That could have been a lot worse for Cape Verde. Rodri Cucurella backdoor. Bolzania stayed at home, and he's going to pay the price. No! It comes off the crossbar. The follow-up is saved. It's Cucurella back into the middle. Torres save. Bolzania. Quick reaction down to his right.
When you're not creating a lot of chances, why not play direct?
Petrie does just that. Header, a touch there from Bolzania. Reporting yesterday, echoing the reports from overseas, he's about to make a big move. Oh, it's going to come into the middle, and Bolzania was right in the right place at the right time. That was Fabian Ruiz, who had the free header, and he put it right at Bolzania. Here comes the cavalry for Spain. Lamine Yamal.
Because of his ability on the ball, now you have to overcommit what they weren't doing before. They've got 3 players against him, and there's one down already.
Inside for Llorente. Surveys the options right at Bolzania. That was Marino, looked like. Indeed it was. 6th save for Bolzania. Lamine Yamal on Willie Semedo. Early cross in. Marino pops straight in the air. Bolzania stays at home. Cucurella heads it right at Bolzania. Everyone back for Cape Verde. It's hooked into the near post. Oyazabal, a cross goal. And it's all the way through. This is going to go in the books as a tie. This is a win.
I mean, look, they're celebrating down
It's
the
over. It's over. It is a win in every possible way.
Live from New York. It's the show that's not spending any more money on Legos for a while. I'll tell you that much. Those expensive Legos.
You want my neck brace?
Yikes. I'm sorry.
Sling.
That's a double whammy. Yikes.
I want to say to the audience on the front end today,
Okay.
if I seem a little off or lightheaded today, it's not because of the financial loss of betting Spain on the money line.
No?
It's because to offset the financial loss this morning before the show, I donated some plasma, and I'm a little woozy. I haven't had to do that since college.
I think that's a true story. Not
About-
the one about this morning, but I think the
College.
college one, you're like,
Yeah, of course. Of course, it's a true story.
just get a bunch of nicotine-filled blood. Like, what the heck? Start New York parade on Thursday. Knicks players taking their victory lap around the city. But Vegas already ready to move on, bro. Next year's championship odds, Spurs at the top, Thunder at 2, Celtics at 3, and the Knicks not on the medal stand at 4. You might be thinking, hey, they should repeat. That's what I always like to think. Problem is, no one does anymore. Last 8 NBA champs, Knicks, Thunder, Celtics, Nuggets, Warriors, Bucks, Lakers, and the Raptors. It goes all the way back to the Raptors.
Let's hear it from Perry.
It's the longest streak of having different champs every year. Ever? Ever? Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay, is this disrespectful to the Knicks?
I think it's disrespectful to the Eastern Conference as a whole. Because Spurs, I'm worried less about the order and more about the delta between. The Spurs and Thunder are just massive favorites, and then a big gap, and then the Celtics and the Knicks cumulatively, and I just think that's wrong. I do not believe in the big bad Western Conference as far as likelihood of winning the title. I do believe it's the tougher conference, but I actually think that works against the Spurs and the Thunder.
Yeah.
I think that the best teams in the West are more likely to get clipped early in the playoffs and are more likely to be battered and bruised by the time they get to the finals. Now, I know that's a little recency bias because that is what just happened, but I think that Minnesota is underrated in this spot. I think there are teams in the West that you could see going on a run, and I don't think that the Spurs and Thunder are just a clear cut above everyone else, and I do feel like this playoffs demonstrated that. The Thunder, lost, and the Spurs, they didn't struggle they didn't have a cakewalk series except for round 1. Round 2, they went 6 games with a tough series with a Timberwolves team that wasn't fully whole. Obviously, round 3, they go the full 7, and the finals, they get beat soundly. So I don't think just because the Knicks won the title, they should be the favorites definitively, but I do think that they should have roughly the same odds as the best teams in the West because And I don't know how you feel, Brew. I don't think if the Thunder made the finals, like they
would have definitely.
Yeah, they would have beaten the Knicks, especially in the shape they were in.
Yeah. So you're going by the numbers. I'm kind of just going more by
the
order.
ranking.
I think the Knicks should look at it as disrespect. Whether we determine it is or not, they should view it that way. All right, and here's why. You said it, you alluded to it. The last 3 winners, OKC, Boston, and Denver, and 4 of the last 5, you had Golden State in there, and then Milwaukee. So 4 of the last 5 minus Golden State, most people thought, I don't know what the odds were, but it felt like, oh, they're going to repeat.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly the last 3.
Yes.
People looked at, oh, is Jokic going to run off a dynasty? Is Boston going to run off a dynasty? OKC, it's going to be a dynasty. And now all of a sudden the Knicks win it, and it's like, no dynasty. All right. So they should look at it as disrespectful. And because of that reason, it is slightly. Because like I said, all these other teams people thought would repeat, but only slightly. I think the Spurs should be the favorite. And I think they are because everybody understands they're not a finished product. Like their 3 best players are all going to get significantly better. We certainly believe they will. They're so young. And so there's that. And this, like I said before, this series, the way they lost to the Knicks is going to help them. We saw it with the Knicks. A year ago, the Knicks lost in 6 to a 4th seed in the Eastern Conference Finals with home court advantage.
Yeah.
They didn't look all that mentally tough last year in the playoffs. They struggled with Detroit in the first round, a series that maybe could have went either way. It was really tough. And they learned from it, and now this
changed coaches.
But had a good coach too, though. But this year they were mentally tough, and I think people expect that jump from them. I don't mind the Thunder being number 2. I think, though, the Celtics ahead of the Knicks is disrespectful. And I get people thinking, okay, Tatum's going to be there a full year. They should be better. But look, the Knicks handled them fairly, I won't say easily, but last time they met in the playoffs, the Knicks handled them.
Yep.
And then this year, the Celtics go out in the first round to a mediocre Philly team that the Knicks destroyed.
Can I say something about the Celtics odds real quick? Because I do think that there are some Spurs elements that we're going to get into later in the show. I think there is no chance the Celtics enter the season with those finals odds. I think that 6-1 is a hedge because if they trade for Giannis, I think they go to 4-1, and if they don't, I think they drop to 8-1. So I think that,
so
you understand what I mean? I think that they are trying to split the difference on. No, if they trade for Giannis, I think that they get much closer to the Thunder. And if it comes out they're not trading for Giannis, I think they fall behind.
You don't think they would pop up to number 1 with Giannis?
No, because of the Western. No, I think it would. I think the Spurs and Thunder would stay where they're at, and the Celtics would be probably plus 300 or plus 400. But I think if we found out that the Heat traded for Giannis, Brew, then I think what would happen is they would fall behind the Knicks. The Celtics would fall behind.
I'll change this to the Celtics with Giannis being disrespected. All right, Wemby is anxious to get back to the finals, but will he? After he was eliminated, he set his sights on getting back, saying, "What I'm pissed about is there's probably 100 games before he can get back to the finals. I don't know how to say it in English, but I'm going to have to hold that inside of me, slow down, wait, and execute for 100 games." Did the finals
minimum?
That is an interesting thought because now they're S-Bob.
Yeah. 100 games minimum.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's going to be 100.
Did the finals change your career expectations for Wemby? Zoom way out.
No. Now, look, he still has GOAT potential. Doesn't mean he'll reach it, or his ceiling, if you will, is the GOAT.
Yep.
I've never said he's going to reach it. I said he has the potential to, and we'll see. But that potential's still there. This has not changed my mind because when we talk about the GOAT, and you said the other day, Nick, that if he doesn't win this series or if they lose it, he will be off the GOAT trajectory.
I said he won't be ahead of pace anymore.
Oh,
I
okay.
said because if he had won it, he would be ahead of pace, in my opinion.
There really is no GOAT trajectory, like pace or whatever.
Okay.
You feel like LeBron's the GOAT.
Yep.
LeBron was bad in his first 2 finals.
Yep.
Didn't win a championship till his 9th year.
Yep.
All right? I think Jordan's the GOAT. Jordan didn't win a finals or even reach a finals till his 7th year.
Yep.
All right? Kareem won it. He's the only other guy kind of in the conversation. He won it his 2nd year, but then went 8 years without, or 9 years, 9 years without winning a championship or getting to the final, or without winning a championship. Yeah. But 2 years of those 9, he missed the playoffs.
Yep.
Like if that were to happen to Wemby, we would be like, oh, there's, within those 9 years, you're saying there's no way. So it's no real GOAT trajectory. So you just look at the player's talent, potential, ability, and that's how you determine if somebody's GOAT potential. So I don't think that's changed. We all know, I mean, we talked ad nauseum about what he needs to improve.
That's right.
The strength, the stamina, the low post skills. But all of that is still there. What we can't forget, and I think you really are a stickler for you shouldn't be punished for going further in the playoffs.
Yes.
This Spurs team, people got to remember, they're way ahead of schedule. And Wemby's ahead of schedule. A year ago, Wemby missed half the season with a blood clot in his shoulder. And so now all of a sudden he's probably going to be the MVP favorite next year. The team missed the playoffs last year. The best predictions for them were play-in team. And now they beat the defending champion and get to the finals. So they're way ahead of schedule as a team. Obviously, he's their star player. So I say the one thing that did change a little for me is it's going to be harder for him to dominate the league. He's going to be obviously the best player, one of the best players. But for him it's going to be tough for him to dominate it than I thought.
Okay.
And I saw that in the finals and the conference finals, just the physical play. He's really going to have to work and improve to dominate the way I kind of expected him.
So, and you're 100% right that one of my fundamental sports beliefs is there should never be a scenario where him winning that Game 7 against the Thunder is bad for him.
It was though.
No, I know you. I know you feel that way.
I know you don't feel that. Definitely.
If he was great and lost that game, Nick probably would be higher. He wouldn't have banners being in front of him.
Definitely the way. He's out of shape.
Right.
You might. So what I was gonna say is, while I don't think it should ever hurt how we feel about you, it can inform what we know about you. You know what I mean? Like some of these the things you're saying, that it's going to be harder to dominate, things he needs to work on. We now have more data points for it and more evidence of that. So I feel like his ceiling is not lowered. His ceiling is the same. His likelihood of reaching the ceiling, to me, because of some concerns I have that were really a spotlight was shined on them, is a touch lower. And I've made
buckle up.
It was going to be a pie. It was going to be a pie, but we couldn't do we couldn't format the pie, but this equals 100%.
Okay.
So this is the odds of where Wemby ends up broken down, and I will go through it as quickly as I can. Before we do it, I put basically...
There is a graphic?
Yeah, there is a graphic. Historical ranking and big man comp, like big man in that ranking, field. And we'll go from worst to best.
Again, this should be a full 90-minute podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to really have to...
All right.
You're going to love this.
At number...
wait.
The 9th spot, the lowest spot, outside the top 50, a 2% chance. And that's Dwight Howard, ranking. And that's really just the injury part. I'm going to give a 2% chance that he never, that never gets there.
And still Hall of Famer.
It's still Hall of Famer, right. You know what I mean? In the 40s, 5% chance, and I put Bill Walton, has, some, and again, that's also injury related. But
and these are all players or just big men?
It's big men, but the ranking is all players. Like top 40 all-time player, I'm using big men, has the type of peak Walton did. Best player in the league, wins a championship, wins an MVP, but it's so brief.
Right.
So I put that about a 5% chance. 10% chance he ends up in the top 30s like Patrick Ewing. And that is just probably doesn't quite dominate the way we thought he would, but has a nice, long, healthy career. A 20% chance he ends up in the top 20s like David Robinson. And this is where it gets really interesting and where I want to see where you land. 25% chance he finishes somewhere in the teens, around the neighborhood Nikola Jokic we believe is going to finish, or at least is right now. A 25% chance he finishes somewhere in that very bottom part of the top 10, right where we have Akeem, or I could have put Shaq, but Akeem is the guy that we usually use. An 8% chance he's better than Akeem and Shaq and those guys and in the Duncan range. And then I give him a 3% chance of top 3, nudging Kareem or Michael or LeBron, whoever you have third in your top 3 out, and a 2% chance of being the greatest player of all time. And I put the GOAT emoji rather than trying to argue. I was like, put LeBron, put Jordan, just put a GOAT emoji.
Okay.
So
good decision.
The other thing I will say is, so that would be 25, 20. So I'm giving him like a 60+% chance of being at teens or better. You know what I mean? If you add all that up, I'm giving him a 35-ish% chance of being Akeem Olajuwon or better, but only around a 13% chance of being firmly, definitively top 10 player. I think that's fair, and I think it's
really good.
Informed or whatever from what we've seen. Does that strike you as too pessimistic, too optimistic, any of the above?
No, it's solid. I mean, like I said, he's going to have to work to get to where we think he could go. Like, I think if and again, we have to see him because he's got to work harder and get that post game. What I saw in the playoffs, like, I didn't think today's NBA was physical enough for him to really, for his lack of a post game and lack of strength to be a problem. And it isn't in the regular season. But in the playoffs, they really let him play. I mean, it was darn near 80s and 90s physicality. And that's where you saw, okay, he's really got to improve on these things. So that's what we agreed on his likelihood or chances of becoming the GOAT or whatever. It's going to be a lot tougher than I thought it would be. And not that I thought he'd definitely be the GOAT, but, just the potential is there.
Can I ask you a question when your sort of etymology, I guess, or on building all of that? He's tall.
Yes.
But there's several games where we're just imploring him to go into the paint.
Correct.
Very few guys, if we were doing this show in the 70s and 80s, would be like, you know what? Hakeem Olajuwon needs to get in the paint.
It was just Ralph Sampson.
Yeah.
The only comp.
Did you consider, are we viewing him through the wrong lens? Should we view him through a Durant lens, who occasionally attacks
I think
the basket?
that's who he wants to be offensively, and where Brew and I think where KW and I disagree with you, Brew, is I don't think he's a great shooter. I think he is.
Well, great might be, but I think he's a really good shooter.
So I don't think
will become.
So I think maybe
better.
he will become. I don't know what he'll become. I don't think he's a really good shooter for the NBA. I think he's a really good shooter for his size, but I don't think. I think he is. He's been in the league. Let's just use this year. Let's not even use the first few years. He was dead in the average of NBA players in three-point attempts. He is. And I don't know that his average three-pointer is tougher or easier than the average player. Some guys, they shoot 34%, but every single one of those, the other team is begging them to shoot, so they're actually worse than that. And some guys shoot 39%, and every single one is super contested. I think he fancies himself a better shooter than he is, and I think that if he does not, he needs to either become dramatically stronger, dramatically better with his footwork, or a dramatically better shooter. One of those three he must accomplish to become a consistently great offensive player. He doesn't have to accomplish all three. He might not even need to accomplish two of them, but he has to accomplish one of those three.
I have a graphic that will show, because the feeling, like, I think now after obviously a disappointing finals, there's a view, it's too low of him. Like, these are his regular season numbers and his playoff numbers, minus the 2 games he left early, concussion, ejection.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that.
But that's
no,
the
I know,
it does feel like
because we just came off the
finals.
For the full playoffs.
But,
so you see, he
was great.
He leveled up.
Yeah,
he at least did probably arguably a little bit better when you look at the blocks, at least in the regular season. But yeah, I think dramatically, like, when I look at his shooting, I'm looking at his form.
He does have great form.
And he's also a great free throw shooter.
Yes.
And that shows you that he's a good shooter. Just a not pure shooter, but he's a good shooter.
And he certainly has the ability. The free throw, where I agree with you on the free throws is it shows a fundamental nature of his jump shot where you expect it to improve. But I'm just saying, as far as what he's at this point, he is in a spot where when he takes a three, the other team, I think, feels let off the hook.
Well, because of his height. I mean, like, he offensively too often he plays like he's 6'5" instead of 7'5".
All right, headed to the World Cup, upset of the tournament. Cape Verde draws with Spain, courtesy of a shutout from Cape Verde's 40-year-old and now Instagram famous goaltender, Zinha. Here's Clint Dempsey on the historic draw.
You got to go out and play the game and the opponent that's in front of you and take nothing away from what Cape Verde did. Spain still had their chances to win this game. They didn't put it away. They need to be more clinical. They're going to go back to the drawing board, look at tape, and maybe this is something that's going to fire them up, like what happened with Argentina versus Saudi Arabia, that little kick up the backside to let you know that you're not as good as what you thought you are, and humbles you a little bit and makes you a little bit more hungry to go out with a point to prove.
So Spain is one of the favorites to win the entire World Cup. Here are the last 4 World Cup champions. Argentina lost their opening round game to Saudi Arabia. France beat Australia, but it was close. Germany crushed Portugal. And then Spain, again, lost to Switzerland 1-0. So if 2 of the last 4 champions straight up lost, if Spain were to win this draw, we'd look back and say, hey, no big deal. Nevertheless, should they be worried?
Yeah, I mean, they can lean on the Argentina fact and lean on their own history. And while Saudi Arabia in last year's tournament was a huge underdog, the last World Cup tournament was a huge underdog, none of those are comparable to drawing with Cape Verde. And, you know, there is a reason that they were minus 1,400 favorites in the morning. And I obviously, overestimated Spain's ability to take care of business. But the closest comp in this tournament to Cape Verde is Curacao.
Yeah.
And Curacao lost 7-1.
It was close for a second.
And it was, I am not, Brew, going to write them off. They were the favorites going into the tournament. Now they're the second favorites to France, or but this is as big of a warning sign as a huge favorite can possibly have. Now, Argentina got that last year with Saudi Arabia, and they never lost again. But I would be very anxious if I were a Spanish supporter.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned. You mentioned last year Argentina in 2010, last time Spain won, they lost the first game. Remember, this wasn't a loss. It feels like it, but it was a draw. And Spain has only won 4 of their previous, before this game, 15 World Cup openers. Like they for whatever reason,
cautious.
They start slow.
Feel out game.
So my 2 concerns though are this. One, I felt like even without Yamal, they can roll. Not just in this game, but period. Like they're really strong. They didn't look nearly as good without him as I suspected they would. And then, Nico Williams, he's also hurt. So those 2 injuries, Jamal, and I get it that they played a little bit yesterday, and but those injuries concern me because a hamstring could pop up, and re-aggravate it. And So those are the things, like not looking as good without Jamal as I expected them to look, and then just having to be concerned about the hamstrings of Williams and Jamal. So, but I think they'll be fine, but those are concerns now.
First announcement of the World Cup. My second real prediction. Spain's not winning the World Cup.
Well, that doesn't even count as a prediction.
You didn't put you.
You can't just say it was a
anyway.
48-team tournament. This team's not winning it.
One. Okay, you want another one? Curacao also not winning. Neither is Cape Verde. Another superstar might be headed to Boston. Giannis has the Celtics and the Heat as the two teams he's willing to extend with, according to Wemby. Windy. Brian Wemby is not reporting.
I don't know. He did give some answers in French. I didn't get them translated.
Brew, we talked about this on the call. You didn't love it. Why?
I just don't understand why Giannis, with all due respect to the Heat, wants to go to Miami. I mean, obviously it's a great place to live. It is a strong organization. Eric Spoelstra's a great coach. But it's going to essentially be Milwaukee South. Now, look, if they trade for him, they got Bam. So those are two bigs
but that's it.
that don't shoot, right?
Well, Bam scored 83 points.
But basically two big non-shooters starting, which can pose a problem. They'll still, presumably, have Norman Powell. I don't think he would go in Milwaukee in the trade. So he's a very good scorer, 20 points a game.
No shot of winning the title.
No. And I just don't get it. I'm sorry for Giannis. I thought he wanted to go somewhere and win. Boston makes a lot of sense for Giannis, obviously. We'll see if they decide to do it. If they were to trade Jaylen Brown for him, Jason Tatum obviously had the big Achilles injury, and Giannis has been injury prone, but maybe they just need a shakeup. And they would have to play totally differently. And
that'd be good for them.
It'd be good for him. We'd see if Missoula is down with that. Lastly, I'll say, Nick, I don't know what Houston's thinking. If I were Houston, either I'm getting rid of Kevin Durant or I'm going to get Giannis. Well, as long as Durant's there, my timetable is now. And Şengün, as they currently are constituted, they cannot win the West unless all the other great players ahead of them get hurt. They can't.
I think that's fair.
And Şengün, if I'm Milwaukee, Şengün and Reed Shepherd is a nice young duo, especially in the East. I know Nick loves the East now, but in the East, I think that's good. And Giannis, Van Vliet, and Durant, Amin Thompson and Jabari Smith, Van Vliet, and Durant shooters, So I would take my chances with that.
I don't disagree with you on the Houston part, which is why I'm focused on the actual wording of this report. The only teams that will entertain trading for Giannis, I would think, are teams that Giannis is willing to extend with. And so my reads on it is Houston's not on that list. And so I think there are fair things to criticize Houston for as far as their team build, but you can't trade Şengün and Reed Shepherd if it's for a one. You can't do. The only team to trade for a superstar who wasn't willing to extend in recent history was Toronto with Kawhi, but they gave up 30 cents on the dollar. And
they got a title.
You're right. And then they were like, we'll roll the dice, and they got a title.
So this is basically a trade demand, you're saying?
What I'm saying is
Milwaukee doesn't, to me, they don't have to play with this. They don't have to play ball with Giannis.
No, they don't have to, but the
team trades for him.
Right.
But I'm saying if you say to Giannis, look, now the Celtics obviously could give him a good package.
Yes.
But if, let's say, they don't like any of the packages from the teams he'll extend with, they can be like, look, we're not accepting any of this. So you can stay here and be what we've been, or you can look at a Houston or whoever.
I understand that, but I think those packages won't be very good if Giannis won't extend. So I'm just I'm just really disappointed that he's willing to extend with the Heat. This is, to me, mentally in the same bucket as how I felt when some of the greatest golfers in the world went to live. I was asking Josh if there was a like I know Cristiano Ronaldo went to the Saudi league, but he was no longer in his prime, of someone it's
You're really down on the Heat, huh?
Well, it's just punting on the rest of your prime. The money. And this, to me, would be, why are the Heat on the list other than Miami's dope?
Okay.
Which surprises me that Giannis would even enter his thinking. He's wanted to stay in freaking Milwaukee.
So I don't know where this report came from, but if Giannis wants to go to the Celtics, like, look, he's also willing to extend it. Is it a little leverage to make the Celtics?
If that's the case, so again, if he ends up in Boston, and that maybe should be as much of a focus as the Heat side of it, I think that is awesome for everyone involved. I think the Celtics have now, for the 5th offseason of his career, floated Jaylen Brown's name in trade rumors. So if they don't get it done, I think you are already potentially, I think, having a, I don't want to say Jaylen Brown problem, but potential Jaylen Brown
but they haven't
relationship
I think it's
management.
fair that they haven't treated him with the utmost respect that a
They've
Finals
not treated
MVP
him like Jason
deserves.
Tatum,
Yes.
for sure. And while I've defended that because I think Tatum's the better player, I don't know if Jaylen Brown agrees with that sentiment. And to be clear to the audience, I do not think Jaylen Brown would be going to Milwaukee. I think it would be a 3-team. I think Jaylen Brown would be routed to either Atlanta or Portland.
Atlanta's in.
And I think, because Portland has Milwaukee's picks, they would want that back. Atlanta would make a lot of sense. They have good picks so those teams would get Jaylen Brown and they would send young assets to Milwaukee. I love the idea of Giannis in Boston. I love it. I think he can win there. I think it is a good fit. I think that it is a shakeup they need. Giannis has not played in relevant postseason games in years, and I don't think that'd be different in Miami.
So, Brew, you've kicked this around, so I had Josh make a comp. You've always talked about Giannis having a Garnett-esque run in Milwaukee, even though he did win there, where it's like, hey, it's time to make a move. So this is the comp.
That's great.
31 years old, games, including the playoffs, 979 for the Bucks for Giannis, 974 with Garnett. 2 MVPs for Giannis, 1 for Garnett, 10-time All-Star, 4 first-team All-Defense. Garnett won Defensive Player of the Year when he was with the Celtics. Giannis already has one. Obviously, it's a little bit different. Paul's Celtics hadn't won a championship in a long time. This team, Celtics core, has won. Garnett hadn't won. Giannis has won. But could you see this sort of being a Garnett-esque addition to Boston?
Yes, absolutely. Now, when Garnett went to Boston and it was Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Garnett, I picked them to win the championship that year, and they did. I think that team, that was clearly the best team in the NBA, and I actually think left the title on the table. They should have won 2, at least. This team in Boston would not be that clear-cut head and shoulders above the rest, but they would have a great chance to win the championship without question. And they would be the favorite in the East they're already the favorite according to the odds, but they would definitely be the favorite.
I'm surprised you don't have them as the favorites.
I didn't say what I would have them. I'm just telling you what I believe. I do not
Would you have them as the favorites?
I'm not. I would want to see what the trade is, but I think that here's what I would tell you. We got way too early King of the Hill coming up in 20-ish minutes. Yeah, I'm just glancing. I have it here. It would clearly be, as far as just raw player ranking, the best duo in the league. Tatum and Giannis.
Yeah.
It would you could argue right now Tatum and Brown is the best as far as just best ranking of players combined.
Right.
But Giannis is markedly better than Jaylen Brown, and not that much older than Jaylen Brown. More of an injury risk. So I think
better on defense and take way less threes.
I
love it.
And Giannis has been averaging 30 a game for his whole prime, basically. So they're better on offense, too. They're just different. I just really don't want him to go to Miami. And I
agree.
I think Spoelstra is one of the best coaches of this era. I think Pat Riley is a legend. I think that is a great organization. But they will have no chance to compete and I want to see him play in big games.
I didn't realize. Sorry, John. I didn't realize Miami was going to get roasted so hard this entire.
Listen,
Is that a tear coming from
That was a
Giannis?
rough one.
Nick, you should apologize.
Yeah, you guys are going to have some bad social media posts. I know that.